So we're here with Adam Stradling from CoinForce, which is the largest...
We're the largest fixed-rate exchange in Chile, and we also operate in Mexico and Peru. So we're one of the largest traders of Bitcoin in Latin America.
So thanks for joining us today on Let's Talk Bitcoin. We're here at the Coin Summit conference, and I am doing something I very rarely do, which is a stand-up interview all by my lonesome. Adam, we were talking about proof of solvency. Was that what you called it?
Yes. So this is a project or an idea that we had a little while ago, and over the last 8 to 10 weeks, our team at CoinForce has started exploring it more in the form of a white paper that we're going to publish in 2 or 3 weeks that essentially allows you to use the cryptographic functions in the protocol layers like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to prove the solvency of third-party businesses, potentially in real time.
So in practice, for me, what does that mean?
Obviously, mt.gox was a huge disaster. We also just had VicUrex, which came out and said that they're going to be closing down and they lost customer funds. So there's a need in general for what I call crypto audits in this space. And we believe that because of the nature of cryptocurrencies, that these audits can be done with a higher degree of mathematical certainty, ease, and automation using some of the core functionalities in the protocol.
One of the things that's interesting about Bitcoin, of course, is that you have the ability to have pseudonymous transparency, which is to say that you can have continuity of identity, but it's not necessarily your government-issued one. And how is this different than what we're doing right now? What is it exactly? Like, you said you're writing a white paper. Can you give me the 60-second simplification? Yeah, sure. So kind of as a reaction to mt.gox, there has been discussions of how you might actually implement this. So, for example, Greg Maxwell proposed using Merkle trees. Peter Todd also proposed this too. And there's a few programmers, Oliver Lalonde on GitHub, who's coding this up right now. So this white paper is going to really kind of look at the state of the art, look at these proposals that they've made, put them in one spot, and then also put our own contributions into that. And I can tell you more in detail, kind of some of our thoughts of how to improve on this process. Please. I think that, again, the transparency thing has been a real problem because you can do it, and yet it hasn't been done.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, like today, you had Kraken publish an audit that was looked at by Stephen Thomas, and that was very interesting and great. And I love Kraken, huge fan. But one of the criticisms that you could potentially make is that they handed their database over to Stephen Thomas. But unless you have a complete history of that database, all the trades that have ever been made, every single fiat deposit that's ever been made, and every single fiat withdrawal that's ever been made, you really can't reconstruct the entire history of user balances there. So I can hand you the database, and I can carve it up however I want, and you can say, oh, great, you just gave me the database, and now I see you have that many coins and you have that much cash, but how do we know that actually represents the liabilities that the users had when they last logged in their account?
So this is transparency throughout the entire process as opposed to only at the audit step?
Well, what you'd like to do is you'd like to have a complete history of the state changes of that database over time. So really publishing your database as a Merkle tree, which has been proposed by Greg Maxwell, although we think that you can use other accumulators. These are cryptographic tools that will help you publish that information to get an entire history of that database. And additionally, you need some type of user incentive for the users to come in and verify their liabilities. Right? And so we've actually conceptualized ways to provide that user incentive. So even with the Merkle tree approach, they come in and they can see that their user balance is included in the tree, right? Which is great, and they can feel better about that. But if you're actually an auditor coming in, say, looking to invest in them and see if their fiat balances match their total balances, you really need your users to verify, every single time that they put money in.
So does that happen on a per instance of audit basis? I'm trying to figure out, is this a continuous process that happens throughout the entire life cycle of one of these exchanges that you're talking about? Or is this a process that only happens, through quarterly or monthly or weekly or whatever reviews, and then there's periodic checkpoints? Yeah, well, how we've imagined it actually could be something in real time. So that's one of the concepts that we're gonna discuss in there, because as you know right now, most audits are done quarterly. So this is an interesting aspect that does come out of the cryptography
that you could be doing audits in real time. And at provablysolvent.com, which is the domain that I own, and we put a website up there now where you can go and sign up to get a copy of this paper when it's out. I really see provablysolvent.com being a place where people can report the results of their audits in real time. So a user can come in, they can say, hey, is Kraken provably solvent? Is Bitstamp provably solvent? And they can see the results of the machinery that is running the audits on that website.
And this doesn't expose sensitive financial data that the exchanges will be not wanting to expose?
Well, that is a great question. And so this is actually where we're going to propose using a class of cryptographic functions called accumulators and some classes of that called commitments to help increase the level of privacy. This was one of the criticisms that have been made about the Merkle tree approach, is that it does open up everything to everybody.
Okay, so let's take a step back here, and can we go through that one piece at a time and have you explain it to me so that the other 90% of my listeners will understand it? So when you're talking about a Merkle tree approach, essentially what you're saying is that all the transactions and all their relationships to each other, but not the identity of the relationships, that's what's being used for the audit. Is that right?
Yeah, that is basically what gets published as a result of their database, right? So yeah, you will see that information, but those specific users their identities won't be revealed. Now, it would be great if you could keep even that information private, and in terms of the liability verification that happens on the users, it'd be great if that could be potentially private too. And that's actually where we think the use of commitments will be great, because and maybe I could later get into details of commitments, but in the paper you'll see that we visualize the use of commitments as a way to maintain greater privacy. But if you have to do an audit using commitments, you can actually then unleash or retrieve this information. So if an auditor comes in and says, Bitstamp, are you solvent like this? Then you actually open these commitments and it'll show that information. Okay, so just real quick, can you explain to me what a commitment is in the context you're using it? Yeah, so it's a cryptographic function that allows people to exchange information without that information being known until a later point in time. So it's like taking something...
It's like a secret.
Yeah, it's like a secret. It's like putting it in a box and then sending it to the other person. And then if anybody questions you at some later point in time, they can ask to open that commitment, but you've already deposited your information there. Hence the reason why they call it a commitment. So in this case, it could be something like a deposit. A customer could come in, they could say, here's a deposit of X amount of BTC or X amount of fiat, but instead of broadcasting that to everybody, right, it could be contained within a commitment, and then later on, if you're doing an audit, right, you would really use some type of sampling. This is even how the big four accounting firms do it, is they actually sample a certain number of people. And in this case, you could open up the boxes and see, okay, did this person in the exchange both agree on the amount of money that was transferred?
So let's play it out on the Latin America side, because that's where you guys do the majority of your business.
Sure.
So, on the one hand, you've got kind of basket case governments, and on the other hand, you've got financial institutions, not specifically in Latin America, but all over the world, that could desperately benefit, and I think certainly their customers could benefit from a lot of transparency in that situation. Do any of these solutions have any, implications, repercussions, anything like that on any of these non-cryptocurrency solutions?
Yeah, actually, if you look at where some of the ideas in the use of accumulators and authentication of databases, this is a subset of cryptography is going. There is a lot of financial applications. So some of these ideas could be directly ported to, say, hedge fund management, where you've had issues with Ponzi schemes and things like that. And it would be a way for investors to authenticate the activities of the fund. On the fiat side. Now, on the cryptocurrency side, you actually have to look at this two problems, fiat and cryptos. On the cryptocurrency side, you could actually use different techniques. But the fiat side is what's difficult, because when you use these functions, you're able to easily sum up the total liabilities in the database, and then at that point, all you need to do is really look at one number. Do they have this amount of USD or euros or not? Right? Whereas a typical audit company would have to come in and they'd add up every single fiat deposit that ever occurred. They'd add up every single fiat withdrawal that ever occurred. They'd have to look at the entire history of the trading database, right? For them to truly know that you have the money that is supposed to be there.
So for accounting firms, this actually is a huge cost and time savings if something like this were. I mean, like, again, you wouldn't need quite the level of, behemothing infrastructure that you do in order to understand how the money is routing in the financial system like we do now.
Yeah, this could definitely be applied there on the fiat side for them. And we're envisioning it mostly right now for in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. But we just actually read a paper yesterday about hedge funds using this to create basically replicas of their databases, sending them to the investors so the investors have this information, and then if the hedge fund risk tolerances or any of this other thing is put into question, they can unlock this information, and they can say to their investors, we're doing what we said to do while maintaining their privacy.
So proofofsolvency.com. So I'm going to go there, and by the time this is actually fully rolled out, what I'll see is a list of exchanges that are following your process and their current status, and then you'll be able to look into it a little bit. Or tell me, what is this website going to look like when it's done?
Yeah, well, it's provablysolvent.com, provablysolvent.com. And right now it's just a landing page where you can sign up and get a copy of the white paper. And right now it's really kind of, I envision it as being a place where people who want to be provably solvent, whether exchange or a wallet or fund, a cryptocurrency fund, can go there and report the results of their audits.
So it's self-reporting.
Once the idealization of this technology is built, sure, it could be self-reporting, because really you're going to have kind of this cloud-based audit system monitoring all the Bitcoin addresses that a certain business has tagged as their own. And that's a whole different thing to talk about in terms of tagging of addresses, which is an interesting idea. The audit software could be reading and running the solvency equations for a business in real time and reporting that results right there. That's kind of how we're thinking about it right now.
And this is better because what happened, for example, with mt.gox is that they might have been insolvent a year ago. They might have been insolvent, at any point in their history, and if they might have just kind of carried it forward and it never caught up with them until now. We don't really know that, and lacking good audit options, we don't have a way to.
Exactly. And if you think about it like this, now that mt.gox opened up its database again, what's happening is people are posting print screens of their account balances in a public forum. So you really have people announcing their liabilities in a public forum so that then you can come and sum up those potential liabilities. Well, what we're proposing does a similar thing, where you're able to allow users to come in when they make a transaction with a business, announce that transaction cryptographically in a private manner that then gets assigned to that business as a liability in this case, and then broadcast that across a network, in a distributed network. So that then you have, instead of it just being a forum post, right, you have all the history of that as encrypted data in a blockchain, really. And so if you ever need to call into question a transaction that happened 2 years ago or something like that, that user says, here's my commitment. We don't know what's in this commitment, but now I'll open it up, and there's my user balance right there.
It is a global record, a global ledger.
Yeah, so that's the other aspect of how we're thinking this. We actually will talk about a implementation of this, which is actually a distributed system too, where both the business's database, which could be in the form of a Merkle tree in terms of how they're announcing this, is actually announced in a distributed fashion through the secure broadcast channel, which is the blockchain, right? And so everybody has a copy of this database going back through time, through all its state changes. And so that's, again, another way where then the database can't be manipulated later on. And if anybody suspects that, they can say, hey, on this day, they can start opening up the different copies of the database. Yeah. It's pretty technical, and I've tried my best to do it. Our CTO has a PhD in cryptography. I'm the CEO. I've talked a lot about this. We've discussed a lot, but the nitty-gritty of the technical details of how this is implemented, their business cases are there too. Like, for instance, how do you get users to report their liabilities to get a full snapshot of the true liability space, right? Users don't want to have to go through another step, right, to click and say, hey, here's my information. But we've come up with what we think could be a good incentive model to get people to do that. Sure, there'll be people who will do it just because they want to have a better ecosystem, but then you have users who just want to do it. So with a reward system, that could be facilitated. We talk about that.
So now, do you want to talk about the token side of this?
how that might work.
Well, okay, so before we get into that, let's talk about this. You're publishing this white paper, and from there, the next step is...
We don't know. I mean, this is so new. People, Maxwell and they've only started applying this the last 4 to 5 weeks, right? And so people are trying to figure out all these different problems right now. And really, what we really just hope with this white paper is one place to consolidate a lot of this information, compare and contrast what people are doing. For instance, the Kraken audit. I think it's great. Kraken's awesome, but I can tell you 3 or 4 things from a process perspective. If they didn't do that, that audit is essentially worthless, right? And then look at other people who have already implemented this. So bitquick.co has opened their API with a really cool proof of reserves function. And this is a little easier for wallets, like say for instance blockchain.info, right? There's no need to have a proof of solvency there. You know that they don't have access to your coins. Right. But there's another interesting aspect of that. What if, say, as blockchain.info goes to raise funds, they say we have 1.3 million wallets. Well, how do you know that that's actually true? Well, here's our database of all our wallets. Right. Well, again, now we're back at the database authentication issue. Right. So we see this not just being a solvency solution potentially for, say, exchanges, but a way to do more audits overall in general. And so we actually have cryptoaudit.com and these other things. So we don't know where this is going. We just want to help the current people who are looking at this, which is Greg Maxwell, Peter Todd, Oliver Lalonde, and Zach Wilcox, consolidate these ideas and add some of our own contributions and see if this is something that people can continue to push forward. Yeah. So if somebody, has listened to this and understood it and is like, man, I'd really love to be involved with that project, what's the process? Where do they contact you? Yeah, just go to provablysolvent.com and they can put in their email and that will sign them up to get the white paper. What I should do is just open up a message box there too. So if they want to send me a message too, but we just put the site up yesterday actually. Or you can email me at adam@coinforce.com. That's COIN4CE.com. So it's pronounced CoinForce, but it's spelled 4CE.com. And you can email me there too. Adam Stradling, thank you very much for your time. Okay, thanks.
Bitcoin Expo 2014, presented by the Bitcoin Alliance of Canada, is just a week away. The conference will feature the key players behind Ethereum, CA Vertex, Litecoin, Open Transactions, Sean's Outpost, CoinTalk, Mastercoin, Dark Wallet, CryptoKit, Blockchain.info, QuickBT, Bitcoin Magazine, and many others, with special guest Andreas Antonopoulos as the Master of Ceremonies. Bitcoin Expo 2014, Toronto, Canada, April 11th to 13th. For tickets, visit bitcoinexpo.ca.